Okay, so Shabbat Shalom, everybody that's here in person, those that are online, and those that will be watching later. This Shabbat is Vayeshev, and we begin with a new focus in the Torah, and it's focusing from Jacob over to Joseph. And he becomes basically the main character through the rest of Genesis. It deals with the story of the coat of many colors, how Joseph was taken down into Egypt. And we see the story of the encounter with Potiphar's wife and him being imprisoned. And then we also have the story of Yehudah and Tamar. So it continues with the conflict of the brothers. So last year, I focused more on the coat of many colors and Joseph's dreams. So if you want more on that, then you go back and watch last year's video, because I'm not going to go into a lot there.
You start with the same scriptures.
So this year, I want to look at it a little differently. So like I said, I may not go into everything that I talked about last year, and because I sort of went with a certain theme here this time. So we're going to start in Genesis 37.
Genesis 37.
And I'm going to go back.
37.
Well, let's start in verse 1. Okay. Yaakov continued living in the land where his father had lived as a foreigner, the land of Canaan. And here's the history of Yaakov. When Yoseph was 17 years old, he used to pasture the flock with his brothers, even though he was still a boy. Once when he was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, he brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Yoseph the most of all of his children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a long sleeve robe. And when his brothers saw their father loved him more than all their brothers, they began to hate him and reached the point where they couldn't even talk to him in a civil manner. And Yoseph had a dream which he told his brothers, and that made them hate him all the more. And he said to them, "Listen while I tell you about this dream of mine. We were tying up bundles of wheat in the field when suddenly my bundle got up by itself and stood upright. And then your bundles came and gathered around mine, prostrated themselves before it. And his brothers retorted, 'Yes, and you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing us around.' And they hated him still the more for his dreams and for what he said. And he had another dream, which he told his brothers. 'Here I had another dream, and there was the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars prostrating themselves before me.' And he told his father too, as well as his brothers. But his fathers rebuked him. 'What is this dream you've had? Do you really expect your mother, your brothers, to come prostrate ourselves before you on the ground?' And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind." So it starts with the generations of Yaakov, but it begins with Joseph, showing that he's really the chosen line. Now, look at verse 3. It says, and depending on how, which version you're reading, it says, because Joseph was the son of his old age. But yet, remember, Benjamin was the last born son. So really, Benjamin's the son of his old age. But the phrase that's used here in the Hebrew is ben zekunim. Okay, ben zekunim. And there are different interpretations for what that means. Okay. So really, like I said, Benjamin's the last son. So he's really that son of Yaakov's old age. And, but Yosef and his older brothers were closer in age. And so he was still the son of the favored wife, Rachel.
Was Benjamin born at this time?
Yes.
So
because Rachel's already dead. Mm-hmm.
But she died right in childbirth.
In childbirth, yes.
So,
but Joseph is called the son of his old age.
Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't. So that sounds like Benjamin wasn't born yet.
Yeah, he was already born here. So if why would Joseph then be called the son of his old age and not really Benjamin then? That's one of the, one of the things that comes up. And when you start looking at Zikonim, okay, a Zakan is a wise person. Okay. A lot of times we think of them as older, wise, the white hair, thinking of as a wise or wisdom. So Zikonim can also mean someone who is wise or wisdom. So Ben Zikonim means a son of wisdom. So, or said in another way, the wisest son. So when you look at what Yaakov is saying about Yosef, it's not, and it can also be read as not that he's the son of my old age, but he's the son of wisdom, or he is the wisest of my sons, the wisest son.
When he said that it was time to him being the firstborn of
Rachel.
In his old age, the firstborn and the chosen one.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely the chosen. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Since he was the firstborn of Rachel.
Rachel.
Yeah. In the old age.
Right. Yeah. And then when you look at this too, this makes sense of why the other brothers are going to be so jealous, because if you're saying he's got all these other brothers, but this is the wisest one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Not only is he the firstborn of Rachel, but he is the wisest one. And so Ben Zikonim is not really based on your age, but on or your attributes. It's basically a position that he has in his family. Yeah. And so Yaakov is really designating Yosef as being like his personal helper. He's his right hand. He is being, what do you call it? Like the intern to take over the business. Okay.
Yeah, because he was already sending Joseph out as a shepherd to watch the brothers.
To watch, yeah.
Report back on
Right.
the brothers, what they were doing.
So this is not only a position or a function, but it was an honor for him. And it wasn't about his age. And a lot of times a Ben Zikonim is also seen as a scholar, because this is about wisdom. You're teaching them, you're bequeathing them your wisdom. That's someone that's going to be a scholar. They're going to be studying. And so what I also found interesting is that Ben Zikonim Zikonim can also be read as two Hebrew words, Ziv and Ikonim, which really also means in the resemblance or the image of. So think about what that's saying. Zikonim can be read as Ziv Ikonim, which is in the image or resemblance of. So Yosef was the Ben Zikonim, the scholar, who was in the image or the resemblance of. Who's he being the scholar under? His father. Okay. So he is the image of his father. Now, I've seen some rabbis' commentaries saying that Joseph looked a lot like Yaakov, that he resembled him when he was younger. And you think about who Joseph is a picture of, Yeshua. And Yeshua is going to be like the Ben Zikonim. He is the son of wisdom, but he is also in the image of the father.
Joseph is the son of Jacob, Israel.
Mm-hmm.
He's the one that had the dreams. And also,
and Joseph has the dreams. Yes.
So
Yaakov has dreams, and so does Joseph.
He knew his father had sat under the teaching of his father, Isaac, and now.
Yeah. And so he's the chosen one. So he's in the image of the father. And think about that. Yosef is basically 17 years old here.
I mean, your mind has to click and get all these people in place.
Yeah. And so when you start thinking about the relationships, they're all from different mothers. So they, how much animosity is going to be there between them. And Benjamin basically is a toddler.
Because there was all that between Esau and Jacob.
Mhm.
Then it come on down from which Jacob was Israel to
Right.
Joseph and his brothers. So it's, it's still there, all that down through generations.
Exactly. So we know the story, how Yaakov loves Rachel, and Rachel died giving birth to Benjamin, her second son. And at this point, like I said, Benjamin is very small. He's not really involved with the older brothers or anything. Joseph is old enough to interact with those brothers, and he's the firstborn of Yaakov and Rachel. And so after her death, Yaakov is probably smothering his 17-year-old son because his beloved wife just died. And even though, he's got the little baby, it is Joseph. Now, think about that. He's showing all of that love and attention to Yosef.
But later on, you hear about Joseph, how much he loved Benjamin. He always wanted to know.
Well, because that was his full brother. Yeah.
Yes. And he was said, he wanted to know about him.
Especially after what they had done to him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He figured maybe they had done something
To his younger brother. Mhm.
even worse.
And he
Right.
loved them so much that he needed to know for sure.
Right. So Yaakov is, probably being very close and very protective of Yosef. And he's raising Yosef up above his older brother. So there's that animosity, but there are many prophetic pictures and layers in this parsha. Because remember, Yosef is not only Yaakov's son, but he's also a picture of Yeshua. Now, I'm not going to go into all the little details here, but like some of the parallels that we see, and we've seen these before, but I'm just give you a quick overview. Yosef was the beloved son of Yaakov. Yeshua was the beloved son of Yah. They both were shepherds. They both end up being hated by their brothers. They both have a mission to provide bread and to save Israel. And so think about Yeshua. His mission was to provide the bread, the word, and save Israel. Joseph's family would bow down before him. And, in the dream, he saw his family bowing down before him. Yeshua, all's going to bow before him. They both were sold. They both were stripped of robes. They both were shamed. They both went from honor to shame, back to honor. They both were exalted from the pit, like Yosef was from the pit to the throne, to second in command. And with Yeshua, he was exalted from the pit or the death to the throne as the king. So Joseph's life is not what we expect to be of the chosen one. Because you think about if he's the chosen one, you would expect him to have this wonderful, abundant, life. And yet his life doesn't turn out that way. And just like Yeshua's life was not one that would be expected of the Mashiach. Not only do we see Yosef as physical son and a picture of Yeshua, Yosef is also a picture of the northern kingdom. The house of Ephraim, the northern kingdom. So think about what happens here. Yosef has his first dream, and he went and shares them with his brothers. Did they receive that dream? Like,
Always a good thing to share your dreams.
it's not always a good thing to share your dreams
with your siblings.
Oh, especially with your siblings. Yeah. So think about this. How many of us have come into Torah, been so excited, learned something new, and ran off to share this revelation with somebody else, believing and expecting them to receive it the same way we did, and they don't.
It don't happen like that.
Bummed out. They look at you like you're dumb.
Mm-hmm. And so think about what Yosef did.
Foreign language.
Yeah, you're speaking for. And think about that's exactly what Yoseph did. He shared that dream with his brothers, and they didn't receive it in the same mindset that he did. And look at verse 8. In 37:8, it says, his brothers retorted, yes, you will certainly be our king. You'll do a great job of bossing over us. And they hated him still more for his dreams and for what he said. So Yoseph was not only hated for his dreams, but he was hated for what he said too. And so this got me to thinking about it's all about Yah's timing.
And that was the wrong time for him to do that, because I have learned, and I talk to God, and I say, you give me something, I'm writing it down. I ain't telling nobody. Until
You say, until you say I can.
And yeah, that's right. Yeah. And I would, I write everything down. If I have a dream or hear.
Whether it's true or not. Yeah.
I know. And I say, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you've got to make me know that this is what I'm supposed to say and when I'm supposed to do it.
Right. And so Joseph's brothers.
Sat and woke me up this morning with a dream. It's kind of funny.
Uh-huh.
She come in, she said, I've had a bad dream. Some woman is trying to get to me. And she said she's younger and she weighs less. And I said, oh, tell me more about this woman.
You wanted to hear about that Saturday.
Yeah, tell me more. He goes, I think I like
That
that.
service.
I know.
Oh my goodness. Crazy. So, but Joseph's brothers weren't ready to hear about what Joseph said, and, you think about it, it wasn't their timing. It doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means their ears weren't ready to hear it at that time. And so sometimes we have to realize that just because we are given a revelation, it may not be the right timing for others. And that's something I think that comes with maturity. And that Joseph was 17. He was immature, still at this point. And in our youth and in our walk and excitedness about some revelation, our eagerness may end up pushing others away. And I think that's something that we need to think about and
it definitely doesn't provoke them.
It doesn't provoke them. Yeah, you have to let the Spirit lead you into that situation. And that, makes me think about the verse in Matthew 7 and verse 6. And I've said this one many times. Don't give to dogs what is holy, and don't throw your pearls to the pigs.
Right.
If you do, they may trample them under their feet, then turn and attack you. What happens when we go off in our eagerness to share something new we've learned and it's not that time for that person?
Right.
What do? They spit it back and throw it out. It's wasted on them. And usually what happens is they turn and attack us.
Right.
Okay. And so that's why I said we need to be mature and let the Spirit lead us. That means we don't need to share everything with everyone. But a lot of us, in that church mindset are thinking like, I got to share the word. I got to share the word. I got to share. And then it's like, it's not time for that person.
When we're being fed so well, we want them to be fed.
Right.
And so we want to jump in there and it backfires.
And sometimes it backfires. Yep. And we all learn the hard way. And, we are a microwave world. We want that instant growth.
Yeah. Because we're so used to it.
Yeah. And this was something, I did put out a post about this, that, our words, when we're sharing the word, our words are a seed. And if we plant that seed in good soil, then we need to sometimes just step back. Because if it's in good soil, then Yah's going to protect it until its appointed time and for it to germinate. And just like for every season of planting, there's a season that follows of watering, letting that seed sprout, letting it grow and flourish and mature. And eventually it will reproduce after its own kind. But it's not an instant thing. And, like Eddie, I know said this numerous times before about, people getting saved in the church and stuff that, a person might get saved and then a few months later, the pastor asks them to teach Sunday school class. And you're like, this person's been saved for 1 month. And now you're wanting them to come in and teach the kids or the youth. That's the most influential age. And you've got someone who doesn't know a lot that's, instructing them. It should be a maturing process there.
I got caught up in that right after I became a believer, like, I guess it's 6 months later, I was asked to teach the classroom, because back then you had church class and then you go out to the sanctuary. And I'm going,
Yeah.
and I poured over that thing for a week and wrote it down. And when I got up there to teach in front of that adult class,
Mhm.
they were all sitting there like this at me. And I'm going, God help me out here.
Yeah. And a lot of times it's hard because if you don't know, you're not strong in the foundation. And then what are you teaching? You're
Yeah.
teaching someone sometimes and they're not being strong,
Yeah.
in the foundation.
They may not be where you are spiritually.
Yeah.
And the pastor's wife was sitting there in the adult class.
Yeah.
The pastor's off in another class. And I'm going, what in the world was I? I mean, they asked me
Yeah.
to do this. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it is because of that numbers mentality instead of, really making people a disciple and learning. And, we have to become grounded in the word before we're going out.
Except
Really.
on my feet, though. Taught it, because what God was showing me, and I taught it,
Mhm.
it stepped on some toes, and
Right.
because I was told later. I was kind of.
Okay. So I want to.
A little hard.
Okay, I'm going to go down to verse 12 because I'm going to read a passage and then go off. After this, when his brothers had gone to pasture their father's sheep in Shechem, Israel asked Yoseph, aren't your brothers pasturing the sheep in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. And he answered, here I am. We hear that a lot. And he said to him, go now and see whether things are going well with your brothers and with the sheep, and bring back word to me. So he sent him away from the Hebron Valley, and he went to Shechem, where a man found him wandering in the countryside. And the man asked him, what are you looking for? I'm looking for my brothers, he answered. Tell me, please, where are they pasturing the sheep? And the man said, they've left here because I heard them say, let's go to Dothan. And Yoseph went after his brothers, and he found them in Dothan. And they spotted him in the distance. And before he had arrived where they were, they had already plotted to kill him. And they said to each other, look, this dreamer is coming. So come now, let us kill him and throw him in one of these water cisterns here. Then we'll say some wild animal devoured him, and we'll see then what becomes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard this, he saved him from being destroyed by them. And he said, we shouldn't take his life. Don't shed blood. Reuben added, throw him in the cistern here in the wilds, and don't lay hands on him yourselves. He intended to rescue him from them later and restore him to his father. So that was when Yoseph arrived to be with his brothers. They stripped off his robe, the long sleeve robe that he was wearing, and took him and threw him in the cistern. The cistern was empty without water in it. Okay. So Yaakov sends Yoseph to check on his brothers. And so as Joseph is going out, he can't find his brothers. Who's Joseph a picture of?
That'll be a picture of Yeshua.
Yeshua. Okay. He goes in search of his lost brothers. Yeshua says, I've only come for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. I'm going in search for my lost brothers. It's the same picture there. In verse 14, it says, where was it? He said to him, Yaakov was saying, go now, see whether things are going well with your brothers and with the sheep. Okay. Well, in Hebrew, it reads a little differently than that. And then in the English, it says, he's telling him to go and, go and see where things are going well. It is lak nare et shalom ayecha. Okay. Which could be read as, go please see the peace of your brothers. Go see the shalom of your brothers. In other words, what he's telling is Yosef to do. Go and make peace with your brothers. Because he knows there's animosity there. Isn't that the same thing that we're told in the Brit Hadashah? And let's go to Matthew chapter 18. Because Yeshua tells us, just like Joseph is a picture of Yeshua, Yeshua tells us about handling conflict with our brothers. In Matthew chapter 18 and verse 15. Good catch, Angelie. Yep, thank you. Sorry, I did just now saw that. Moreover, if your brother commits a sin against you, and go and show him his fault, but privately, just between the two of you. If he listens to you, you've won him back. You've won back your brother. If he doesn't listen, take one or two others with you so that every accusation can be supported by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. If he refuses to hear them, tell the congregation. And if he refuses to listen to the congregation, then treat him as you would a pagan or a tax collector. Okay, let's go back a few chapters in Matthew to chapter 5. Notice this one too, verse 23. We know how important the temple was. The temple was the center of all religious life, and you're bringing your offering to the temple. Notice what Yeshua says. So verse 23, if you are offering your gift at the temple altar and you remember there that your brother has something against you, leave your gift. Don't make your offering. Leave your gift where it is by the altar and you go make peace with your brother. Then come back and offer your gift. So what we miss in the story of Joseph is basically Yaakov is telling him, knowing there's animosity there, to go back and make peace with his brothers. So Yosef is extending that hand of peace and trying to make peace with his brothers. Now, is Yah in control of everything?
I've always had it.
Makes you think about
I
that.
think so.
Okay. Think about what's happening here. There was a prophecy already given to Abraham that his descendants would be in a foreign land and oppressed for over 400 years. Joseph is the most beloved of Yaakov. How is, that's your beloved son whose mother died, are you going to let him go off into a pagan land?
No.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No,
Not willingly.
not willingly. Yeah.
not really. A security guard around.
Well, not without security guard or something. And you think about, and especially, it's already been prophesied that they were going to be oppressed for over 400 years and that they're going to be in the land of Egypt too. So this is one way for Yah to get Yosef into Egypt. Okay. Because Yaakov had plenty of servants that he could go out to send to check on his sons.
Yeah.
But he didn't send a servant. He sent Yosef. And if Yosef hadn't gone out to check on his brothers, then they wouldn't have sold him. He wouldn't have gone down to Egypt. And if he didn't go down in Egypt, they wouldn't have been able to come out of Egypt, or they wouldn't even have been alive, because what happened? There was famine in the land and he provided the grain which saved his brothers.
Yeah, the world would have definitely suffered had Joseph not been sold into Egypt.
Right.
Definitely.
But
And, yeah. A lot of stuff. And I think too that Joseph would have stayed more around his dad, there.
Mhm.
And he did tend to shoot, I don't think he would have sent him out unless, I think Joseph heard from God. Or maybe just felt Joseph needs to go
Mhm.
make peace with the brothers.
Mhm.
look, 17 years he suffered
Yeah,
the loss.
yeah.
Right.
So I
Was he
think
17?
at that time.
Joseph was 17, but he didn't die until,
No, I mean, Jacob suffered tremendous amount of loss, despair because of
His son.
assuming
His son was dead. Yes. Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
when he's down there, yeah.
How is that beneficial?
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
You know, I mean, it was beneficial for Joseph to go
Mhm.
in one way, but it was terrible for Jacob, for Joseph to go. Because when Jacob is before Pharaoh, he asked him, how was your life?
Yeah,
It's been hard. It's been difficult. It's been tough. It's been, and I look at my own life and at times I think it's been hard. It's been tough. There's been things that have just not worked out the way that I wanted them to work out, So
and we don't see the plan, yeah.
we don't see, no, I don't see no plan. I ain't got no plan. That's can't run away.
You know,
I hadn't been informed.
yeah, and I think that's part of the thing. There's a midrash that actually says that after Yaakov returns to the land, when he first comes back into the land, that this is what the midrash says, that the Holy One saw to it that no outside force could cause the family harm. But what the nations couldn't do to Israel, they could do to themselves. The family did it to themselves. And why did they do it? They had these negative emotions like envy and jealousy and anger and offense. And that was running rampant in the family. And because there was this explosion of hard feelings and hard words, which resulted in all these lines of divisions there. But Yah is still in control.
Let's
Mhm.
through all of our lives and in believers' lives. A lot of times we do things on our own.
Mhm.
We think we know what's best for us and God sometime. And Yah has to then, after all these things that happens in our lives that a lot of times we cause, God's got to work around all this. He's got to do something. This happened. This is not what I wanted, but Eddie did this, so I have to kind of work around and do something else. Because a lot of times everything that happens is not Yah's will
Mhm.
in our life. So he said, man, I've got to work around this thing. I've got to work around Dawn and Terry and Lisa and Ken Sandy and Jack. I got to work around them because they didn't have enough faith in me sometimes. And it's because we're not perfect. And so Yah's got to say, well, this was my plan. Listen, it was Yah's plan for Israel to take the gospel
Mhm.
all the way.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what he said in Genesis. Well, that didn't work out. So y'all had to do something. He had to set things up, another way because of our, disobedience, because we didn't do it the way Yah wanted it to be done. And so that's the thing about it. His will a lot of times hadn't been our will.
Right.
And so we've got to remember, listen, I'm like Terry. Sometimes I say, yeah, why? What's
Mhm.
going on? Why? My life, I want to be, but a lot of times we
Mhm.
don't have the patience. We don't, walk in what he wants us to walk. So y'all's got to kind of have an alternative plan for us.
Well, and Yah's in control, and he knows, the beginning from the end. He knew the choices that we
Yeah.
are going to make,
Yeah.
and he could still stop us.
Right.
He could stop us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just like, sometimes, and I've made this, I don't know, analogy or whatever before, that there have been times that, I may be on my way to work, and I usually try to leave around the same time because 5 minutes can make a big difference when you're driving that far. But that hitting traffic, and then there's one morning I, for some reason, get stuck in behind a lot of cars, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. But then I get up the road 10 minutes, and there's this major wreck in this spot that I would have been in if I had been going my normal speed, and sometimes we think of those inconveniences as something bad because you're keeping me from getting to where I need to be, but it's not. It was really Yah protection for my good there. But it was something that, I would see it as an inconvenience there.
But we all have free will.
We all still have free will.
And,
Yes.
hey, look at Adam and Eve.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all could have.
He could have stopped it.
He could have
Yep.
stopped it and says, no, don't do it. but he did not.
Yeah.
Because he gave us free will.
Right. And a lot of times he allows us to be in those situations for our own process of dealing with things in our life.
And to wake you up.
To wake you up, yeah.
Listen to me.
Yes.
And they listen to me.
Yeah.
Because like when I was talking to you on the phone, Lisa usually calls me every day after she gets off of work, we can
Right. Oh,
on
no.
a drive. And there was one day you hollered, oh,
Mhm.
and it was about a truck.
Yeah,
You-
yep, see?
And if she'd have been off the phone with me and just driving, you know, 'cause she goes slower when she's
Right.
talking to me.
Yeah.
And you would have been right there and wham, you
Yeah.
know.
So,
And it, you know, when she said, oh, and that scared me, I said, what happened? She said, there's this big truck, you know.
came over on me. So
Yeah.
now think about too, that the brothers weren't at Shechem. You know, Yaakov tells them, they're at Shechem. That's where they are. And so the brothers weren't where they're supposed to be. Well, they were shepherds. They were to be out caring for the sheep. They weren't doing their father's business. They weren't caring for the sheep.
No,
They're about doing their own thing. Yeah.
They were.
they were kicking it off somewhere on
Yeah.
the rocks and woods.
So think about
They went with a place of trading and
a
stuff.
lot of place where trading, where there were a lot of people coming through. You can see people, you can meet people like the club or the
Yeah.
bar, or wherever.
About that, cause I always thought, well, maybe they just went to where the grass was greener somewhere for the sheep, but maybe that wasn't
Grass
the
was
case.
green.
Yeah. For them, yeah, for
I
them.
hadn't thought about that.
So they're not about the father's business, but they were about their own. You know, what's going to make me happy? Oh, I can go over here and I can meet a whole bunch of people and hang out with them or whatever.
What was so strange is, I don't, you haven't got to it yet, but I don't, you just stop me if you're gonna get to it. Is this guy that's meet him?
Oh yeah, okay.
I went in, okay,
But where were they?
they were out somewhere.
Where was the place? You remember?
Gotham?
Dothan, yes. Okay, Dotan. And so Dotan
Okay.
in Hebrew means two cisterns or two wells, okay? Well, a cistern holds water. And Dotan is actually a place on the northern southern route. It's later called the Via Maris, which was the main trade route, okay? But I want to go to another place where Dotan is, and I want you to see what the meaning
In
is.
Alabama.
Yeah, there is a Dotan in Alabama. Yes. So,
Lower Alabama.
yeah. Lower Alabama. Okay, 2 Kings chapter 6.
I was on a mission trip with a pastor from Dothan, Alabama.
Okay. 2 Kings chapter 6. And I'm going to go down to verse 12.
You know, the Arabic it's Alabama. I think.
Alabama.
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 Well, you remember the old song about what was it? Black Betty.
Oh, yeah.
She was from yeah, she was from Bama Lamb.
That-
A lot of people don't know Bama Lamb is Alabama. So
Birmingham.
she was from Birmingham. Yep. Okay. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 12. One of the servants replied, "It's not that, my lord king. Rather, Elisha, the prophet who is in Israel, tells the king of Israel the words you speak privately in your own bedroom." He said, "Go and see where he is so that I can send and bring him here." And they told him, "He's in Dotan." So he sent horses, chariots, and a large army there and came by night and surrounded the city. The servant of the man of God got up early in the morning, and on going outside, he saw an army with horses and chariots surrounding the city. And his servant said to him, "Oh, my master, this is terrible. What are we going to do?" And he answered, "Don't be afraid. Those who are with us outnumber those who are with them." So look at what's happening here. It is at Dotan where Elijah's servants' eyes were spiritually open to see.
That's the same place.
Yes. So, and remember, Dotan is a cistern or a well. Well, a well is a metaphor for revelation. Okay. But it is two wells, is the place of two wells. So there are two kinds of revelation taking place. And if we think about what's happening in the story with Joseph, we see that that's where they come up with the plot to kill it. Okay. And then they later sell him. So that's one form of revelation. Going back to the parsha, I go back to Genesis 37. And it says, they took Joseph's robe, killed a male goat, dipped the robe in the blood. They sent the long sleeve robe and brought it to their father, saying, we found this. Do you know if this is your son's robe or not? He recognized it and cried, it's my son's robe. Some wild animal has torn Joseph into pieces and eaten him. And Yaakov tore his clothes, putting sackcloth around his waist. He mourned his son for many days. Though all of his sons and daughter tried to comfort him, he refused all consolation, saying, no, I will go down to the grave to my son mourning. And his father wept for him. So think about what's happening here. The brothers try to cover their tracks by making Yaakov think that Joseph is dead, that's been torn apart by these wild animals. Nope, they didn't have a part in it. And how did they make him believe that wild animals had did it? They killed a goat. Okay, they killed a goat, and they smeared blood all over Joseph's, garment. Okay, and they sent it to Yaakov, so that he could draw the conclusion himself what happened here. But think about the irony that's happening. Just as Yaakov had deceived his father, Yitzhak, by killing a goat and making a garment in order to receive the blessing that Esau sold to him, it's those same items, the goat and the garment, that's used by his sons to deceive him. It's the same thing. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so you think, so at Dotan, I believe there are two revelations happening. One, that's where the brothers plotted. They had this revelation, let's kill Yosef. And they ended up selling him. And there was this other revelation where Yosef, I believe, had this change, because remember, he was very immature. He shared everything. But after this, he sort of takes stuff, lets it happen to him, accepts, you know what I'm saying? He doesn't start sharing and trying to, that I see it, that the revelation that Yah's plan was being laid out, and it was going to be a plan of suffering, him suffering for others, that was going to take place.
Is the parallel between Isaac and Jacob and Joseph? Are those two parallels also paralleled with Yeshua? Is there a goat and a blood?
Well, we see his blood, where his garment being stripped off of him. He was beaten and bloodied, and then his garments are taken off of him and he's stripped too. But that concept in Hebrew is called midah keneged midah, okay, which is measure for measure.
Okay.
Or you reap what you sow, okay? And that's a concept we see repeatedly throughout Scripture. Now, we see this also come up somewhere else, because look at verse 32. Look at what they say. They sent the robe to their father, and they say, we found this. Well, they know that's,
Wow.
that this is Joseph's robe, but they say, do you know if it's your son's robe or not?
They didn't want to tell him. They wanted him to make his own assumption.
They wanted him to make his own assumption.
Knowing there's not another road like that one anywhere.
Right. Okay. And Angelina said it's a life-changing concept that helps instill the fear and reverence of Yah. Yep. That what comes around. Yep. And so look, this is where it's important, because look at what happens here. The brothers tell Yaakov, do you know if this is your son's robe? In Hebrew, what they say is haker na. Examine, please. Examine this, okay? There's only one other time this is used in Scripture, that phrase, haker na. Not before that, but that's a good guess. That's a good guess. It's used in the same parsha.
Really?
Mhm.
Okay.
And it takes us over to chapter 38. Okay. And this is about the story of Yehudah and Tamar. Okay. And we know the story begins that, Tamar is married to Yehudah's oldest son. He dies. Okay. And as part of the levirate marriage, then, the brother is supposed to marry her and give her a son. And that son would be considered the firstborn, the first husband's son. Okay. Yet he fails to do that. Why?
He said it wouldn't be his, and he didn't want that to be his brother.
Because what happens?
Yeah.
The firstborn's now dead. Who's the secondborn?
Mhm.
He now becomes the firstborn.
Yeah,
So,
but
if she has a baby,
Yeah,
that baby is going to be the firstborn, and he's still
So,
out. Yep, he's still second. He's still out. So he's not going to get that inheritance there.
so his heart wouldn't like.
So he doesn't do it. Okay. And then, so Yah kills him. Yehudah promises to marry her off to his youngest son, but we know he fails to do so. Now I'm going to go down to verse 12.
you noticed Yah killed both.
Yeah, Yah killed both of them.
I don't know how, but it's probably a disease or just something wrong with them that they died instantly.
Right,
What she just said, Yah killed both of them.
right.
Did he kill them or he allowed them to be killed?
Well, and he could maneuver the whole situation too, but that's still his, him doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
And because I noticed that a long time ago when was.
Yeah, because he uses us to accomplish his plans. We are his hands, his feet.
The way they were doing it, and of
Mhm.
course, the first one died, but he was still evil.
Right.
And, and then the second one, he did the unthinkable against God.
Right.
The seed.
Right.
And so, God did away with him on that one.
And Angelina read that self leads to self-destruction when we're focused on ourself and always thinking about, that had a nerve, Angelina. We had some expressions like, whoa, that just pierced. Good. Yes. So.
Is that song Dakota being colors, Dolly Parton?
No, that was just talking about her mama being poor and making many colors.
I didn't know.
So,
She hated
No,
it.
Dolly she was religious.
yeah, no,
No,
not in that aspect though. Okay, so verse 12. In due time, Shua, that was the youngest son's daughter, the wife of Yehudah, or not yet, daughter, the son, the wife of Yehudah died. And after Yehudah had been comforted, he went to be with the sheep shearers in Timnah. He and his friend Hira, the Aldumi.
Yeah.
And Tamar was told, your father-in-law has gone up to Timnah to shear the sheep. So she took off her widow's clothes, completely covered her face with a veil, and sat at the entrance of Enaim, which is interesting, which is on the way to Timnah. For she saw that Shelah had grown up, but she was still not given to him as a wife. When Yehudah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute because she had covered her face. So he went over to her where she was sitting and said, not realizing that she was his daughter-in-law, come, let me sleep with you. And she answered, what will you pay to sleep with me? And he said, I will send you a kid from the flock of goats. And she said, will you also give me something as a guarantee until you send it? And he answered, what should I give to you as a guarantee? And she said, your seal with its cord, the staff you're carrying in your hand. So he gave it to her, went and slept with her, and she conceived by him. And she got up and went away and took off her veil and put on her widow's clothes. And Yehudah sent the kid with his friend to the Adomi to receive the guarantee items back from the woman, but he couldn't find her. And he asked the people near where she had been, where is the prostitute who was on the road to Emanim? And they answered, there hasn't been any prostitute here. So he returned to Yehudah and said, I couldn't find her. Also, the people said there wasn't any prostitute. And Yehudah said, all right, let her keep those things so we wouldn't be publicly shamed. I sent the kid, but you didn't find her. And after 3 months later, Yehudah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has been acting like a whore. Moreover, she's pregnant as a result of her prostitution. And Yehudah said, bring her out and let her be burned alive. And when she was brought out, she she sent this message to her father-in-law. I am pregnant by the man to whom these things belong. Determine, I beg you, who these are, the signet, the cords, and the staff. And then Yehudah acknowledged owning them. And he said, she is more righteous than I, because I didn't let her become the wife of my son Shelah. And he never slept with her again.
Okay, I got it.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me see this. Angelina just said, I'm impressed at how attractive and good looking all these women were, even at older ages like Sarah. Yes, that's probably from eating the fruit of the land and living,
Right.
Use
Yeah,
the castor oil on the face.
yeah, they used a lot of oils and stuff on their skin.
Use castor oil on mine.
Okay.
Using.
When's it gonna start working?
Okay, wait a second.
Uh-oh.
Oh, no.
Hey.
No, did something speak?
Yeah. Okay, wait a second. No, y'all get off. Yeah.
I need to ask a question about that. It's always bothered me.
Mhm,
Why, she was a widow twice.
mhm.
She was already living in her father's house. So what is it in God's law that was she to be scorned because she was a widow if she never?
No, but she just,
She never
because she had children, she doesn't have anything, because a lot of times the father's not going to live that long, and how's she going to be provided for?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about her
It's
protection.
according to her future.
Yes.
So if she didn't marry, which she did not marry the youngest,
Okay, wait a
she
second.
didn't marry her father.
No, okay, so look at what happens here. There is some poetic irony in this story found in the Hebrew here. Okay,
Okay.
because how does Tamar deceive Yehudah?
Huh.
How does she deceive him?
Got him
She
drunk.
covered
No.
her, she covered her face.
Her garments.
Yeah, she wore a.
Just like,
Garments.
think about the irony, the deceptive garments. Yaakov wore deceptive garments to get his father
Yeah.
to bless him.
Yeah.
He wore Esau's clothes. Now, here is Tamar. She's dressing up in deceptive garments to get this blessing. And it says she was Vayeshev. She was sitting. What's the name of this portion? Vayeshev. The same name. She was sitting here.
As soon as she left there, she took the garments off. Nobody saw her as a prostitute there.
Right.
Of course, she
was a believing widow.
Yes.
But still, they would have noticed. because
So-
They said there was no.
Right.
prostitute.
And I mean, from what I've seen, it's obviously part of the custom that a lot of the prostitutes would cover their faces, whatever, I guess. I don't. It was a deception. Yes, it was a deception.
She brought deception.
Okay.
For them to do that.
Okay.
A lot of-
Remember all this with this
I
point?
I was just saying, she knew what she'd done.
She knew what she did. Yeah.
And what happened,
Okay. So
did anything happen to her for that? or-
let's get there. I'm on talk on some of these points here a minute. But think about, I'm gonna come back to it. There were 3 specific things that she asked for: your signet, your cord, and your staff.
Yeah.
Okay.
This whole lot there.
And in the ancient Near East, signets or a seal was used to show, well, a lot of the kings would have rings, but the normal people use seals all the time. It was their authority, okay, to show you would, if you went to the market and you were buying things and you were negotiating prices,
Would it be like a wax stamp seal they use?
they used a lot of what was cylinder seals. So a lot of times they wore them on a leather cord around their neck. Okay. And it was like a cylinder. And so you had, engravings on it. Okay. And, I know like the Bible Lands Museum, you can just Google like, even Mesopotamian seals, Sumerian seals. And what they did is they would roll it when you bought something, you would go in, they would take a piece of clay, put it out, flatten it,
Yeah.
and then you would take your seal off and you would roll it, which would have your emblems that showed your lineage, your family name, whatever. And that clay is going to harden, and this is what I've got now to show that you're coming back and you're going to pay me for this. Okay. But a lot of men would wear them around on a leather cord around their neck. Okay, they would,
Okay.
and that's how they would carry it around. That was their way to show their authority on things or whatever.
Even the staffs were distinct,
Yes.
each tribe.
And so basically comparing it today, whenever we go somewhere to get something, we use not a seal,
Mhm.
our signature.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like that. They would sign, like we sign documents today with a signature, they would use their signet or that seal to do that. There's actually been some that have been found by archaeologists that have dated back to the early Bronze Age, which has been around 3300 BC. And these seals, like I said, were often threaded on like leather and worn around the neck. Okay. The other thing she asked for was the staff or the rod. Okay. And it was called a mateh in Hebrew. And, it was, a lot of times it was an aid in walking, but it was also, the staff was used to, to prod animals, to move them in a certain way. It was also used as a weapon, because you think about, why is it called a staff and why is it called a rod? When you think about it, it depends on how you're holding it. Okay. If you're holding it a lot of times with a crook, if you're holding the crook and you've got the straight edge out, it's used as a weapon. But a lot of the shepherds would hold the straight end of it and the crook would go out, and you would use it, to goad your sheep to the right direction. Okay. And so it was used as both. So this was a personal item, and a lot of times they would have been polished and they would have your name or something engraved on it. Remember when they came before, when all the tribes came up and he told them to get the stick and write their name, each one of the tribes on it, and you see which one sprouted, and then that's how he chose Aaron. Okay. So that's, similar. So those markers were specific to Judah. And that she knew what they were, and she asked specifically for those. Now, verse 25, it says, look at what it says here. When she was brought out, she sent this message to her father-in-law. They were taking her out. Word came to Yehudah, your daughter-in-law is pregnant. And so they're bringing her out. And she sent this message to him and said, I'm pregnant by the man whom these things belong. Look at what she says. Determine, I beg you. What is that phrase in Hebrew? Haker na. That was the same words that Yehudah and his brothers said to their father. His words come full circle and are coming back to him now. When they told their father to examine the garment and see if it was Joseph's, they said to their father, Hakerna. And now, the same words that he used, she's using, saying, Hakerna.
And Judah
To
was
Judah.
the instigator of everything.
Yes. And so this made me think about in Matthew 12 and 36, it says, moreover, I tell you this, on the day of judgment, people will have to give an account for every careless word they have spoken. So think about, none of our words go unnoticed. What Yehudah said has now coming back to him. Those words boomeranged around and are coming back to hit him. Like I said, that Yah's taking account. He's writing down all those words, and it will come back to us. This is that concept of midah keneged midah, measure for measure. That's why we have to be careful of what we speak and how we speak to others, because that person, it may not, affect us right then, but look at years later what happened. Years later, those same words that he spoke are now coming around and hitting him.
I know back, it's been about 6 or 7 years ago, I took a train trip up to Bristol, Tennessee. And there was a little village we stopped at, and it had a little store that did staffs out of certain woods. You could go there and pick out the staff, and that's what that man called it, was the staff, and it was. And I picked out one I wanted, and he put the cord on it, and he engraved what the wood was, when it was made, and all of this, And I didn't think coming home, how am I gonna get that thing in the car?
Then what you do is try
Is
to-
she brought it, yeah, so you brought a
Get
staff,
out the window in the
Like
back
the old
seat.
fishing.
yeah. So
It's
she,
it's about this big around.
but yeah, you got a walking stick staff.
I mean, you can use it for a phone, you
Mhm.
know, but it's like 6 foot tall.
Mhm.
And he made that one for me while I was standing there waiting on him and all, and he did all the engraving on it and all.
But that's interesting.
So,
It was.
so let's think about
About that thing.
something else, and I tried to emphasize that when I read it, is Tamar was brought out, and we missed that. Why is that important?
Yeah, cause they, yeah, like Ken Ankle, what?
You're talking about where it says bring her forth?
Yeah, she was brought forth.
Mhm.
She's basically being brought out to the elders at the gate for judgment.
Even
Yeah.
though she's pregnant, they were gonna burn.
Because think about it. She was brought out to be judged by the Beit Din, the house of judgment. Now,
He didn't say anything else, but he had not.
and one of the things that, you know, we don't really see here, but Yehudah and their family was a prominent family. And some of the rabbis have said that Yehudah could have easily have covered up his sin, but look at what happened here. When he is confronted with those things, he says, she's more righteous than I because I didn't let her become the wife of my son, Shelah.
Cause he held, well, basically, he was responsible because he held her back from fulfilling her duty as a wife with a child, wasn't
Right.
it? Because she was living with her father, so
Right.
basically, he was doing it.
And so think about what's happening here is that she's being brought out to be judged. And he's saying she is more righteous than he is. And he's recognizing what she did here. Now, like I said, the rabbi said that Yehudah could have easily covered up the sin, but he's in front of the Beit Din. He's in front of the elders here. And instead of saying, well, let's investigate this matter further or whatever, and, you know, going off. No, he didn't do that. He acknowledged it.
Yeah.
And he was basically like repentant before these judges. And, you know, the rabbis say that this is why that Yehudah is given the line of the kingship is through them.
He didn't have no choice though. She had evidence against him.
She had evidence, but he was a prominent man. He could have probably said, well, let's all investigate this. You know, somebody else, you know, took this or whatever, you know, could have made a big spiel about it because but no. And it's from this line of Yehudah and Tamar which seems to be the least expected, that we get the Davidic kingly line.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Kelly was asking, is what Tamar did in good in Yah's eyes? Okay.
Because,
Okay,
vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Vengeance is mine.
He was being revengeful because he didn't.
Well, was she being revengeful or was she doing her duty, trying to fulfilling her duty that she was supposed to?
Okay, thank you.
And Angelina said, and judged by burning, which is something that's only done to priest's daughter. We do see that come up. And I know that a lot of people believe that Tamar is actually a daughter of Shem, which that I don't know, but that, you know, some believe that's why that they're saying that
so we don't know
the
where
burning.
Tamar came from.
No.
Do you know,
Now,
don't they still have in some sects the Levitical law that the brother has to marry?
The levirate marriage, it
Yes.
is not really practiced
Mhm.
anymore. Some
I think
Hasidic,
they go through the act, but they can't.
no, well, some Hasidic sect, there's some part of the Hasidic that will, but they don't really enforce it.
Enforce it.
Mm-mm,
Like,
no, but there is some that will still try to, but it's
isn't
not
that
really
the law
enforced.
that God says that is the law, isn't it? And that God says that the husband, that.
Within to keep the lineage during that time and stuff,
Yes.
yeah, and so that they would, because it was,
Still being right order, wouldn't it, if God said it?
Well, I mean, and I think too, when you look at when you look at what was done and knowing that that was the only protection for a woman, that was the only way that he was looking out for women and looking out to make sure that they would be protected.
Because they didn't work.
Right. They didn't have a job. They couldn't, they couldn't do that. Okay. I'm going to stop the video just a second because I want to share something and I don't want to violate, YouTube laws by recording this, but I will put a link for those who want to watch this. But okay, sorry. Now go ahead. Sorry, now we're on recording.
Because he was unassuming, nobody knew who he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was married Joseph. Who knew that? How did anybody? He just came forth and started teaching, and
Right. And so what I wanted to play that is because this is an Orthodox. She is Orthodox. They do not believe in Yeshua here. But listen to what she said. It sounds like it, but no, she is not a believer. She's not a believer.
This believes in Mashiach.
They believe in Mashiach, but she doesn't believe in Yeshua. No, she is an Orthodox Jew.
She needs to read the New Testament.
So that's what I'm saying. That she's saying what this whole parsha, this is what they're teaching, that this whole parsha is about how the Mashiach is going to come, not in the way that they expect.
Right. She said, say others though are searching and waiting and bringing.
But you know what Terry just said too. Mashiach, what would you just say? She needed
to read the New Testament.
Testament. Well, wait a minute. You ought to be able to prove the Mashiach
without that,
in Torah and
because Yeshua, he walked up the Damascus Road with those two, and he expounded on the scriptures.
Yes.
From what Moses, prophets, about himself.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
He said the script. They talked about me.
Right.
Ariel, when I was in Israel, he was studying to be
and he said,
rabbi.
So my day,
And
right.
He I forgot what I was going to say. He said that the New Testament is a Hebraic book. It's a Judean book. It's not an Americanized book. It's speaking of Torah.
Right.
When she was talking,
And the
Orthodox and other people listening to her, I mean,
right.
I had to work.
And so to think about, and
the way she's saying, he doesn't have to come from the line you're saying. He can come.
Well, he's going to have to be from the line of David. But what they're saying is from the controversy, that the whole thing of Yehudah and Tamar, the controversy of it, that looking with one eyes, you would think there's no way that the Messiah is going to come from something like that.
Your natural eyes would say no.
Yeah. What consequence it was that came about the Tamar?
Yeah.
Her doing what she did. But she brought forth the Messiah through that line of Judah.
And so, like Angelina just said, it's been eye-opening listening to the Orthodox Jewish teachings because Yeshua is all over what they share. They just can't see him yet.
Yeshua said
They're
that.
partially blind, yeah.
Yeshua said that they can't see it.
It's in the church now.
Right.
Jack and I were talking about it coming down the road this morning. About the people in the church.
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely amazing.
Now think about
When
this.
You think about that, what you going on with that, that's mind blowing.
And so think about this. Now we have this story when we're reading this parsha, we got talking about Yoseph, and then it goes over into chapter 38, and all of a sudden it stops talking about Yoseph and it goes into talking about Yehudah and Tamar, and then we go back to talking about Yoseph again.
It's just kind of just
stuck in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So wait a second.
The important thing is she realizes
Same.
God has touched her and revealed to her the truth.
Yeah. Okay. Now
of what
about Mashiach. Yeah. And so now this seems strange that we have the story of Yosef. And then in the middle, we've got Yehudah and Tamar, and then it goes back to Yosef. But look at the prophetic picture that is being referenced. It's talking about the Mashiach. We begin with Yosef being a picture of this suffering servant.
right.
That's a picture of Mashiach, Yeshua, at his first coming. And then it moves into the story of Yehudah and Tamar, which is where we get the Davidic line, which is where we get Mashiach ben David. So within this parsha, we see the two comings of Yeshua in this parsha and his different roles as the Mashiach ben Yoseph and the Mashiach ben David, except the problem is Orthodox Judaism does not see them as one man.
And what was it, rapes?
Yeah, that she's grafted into.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, through her, the lineage. you
Yep.
know,
Okay.
Boaz and her and, you know.
Don't
Ruth.
answer. I know.
Boaz and Ruth.
Don't answer because I already asked you this. Okay, so Eddie can't answer this one.
I just
No,
want.
no.
No, Eddie, you got.
Close your lips. You ready? So I'm going to ask a question and see what y'all think.
Or tell me what, no.
No, you have not. What was Yeshua's full name?
Oh, gosh.
Yeshua Mashiach.
Yeah. It's still a hot shit.
Oh, let's see.
Then
What he,
Yosef.
yeah. Yeshua ben Yosef.
Yeshua ben Yosef.
Yeah.
Okay, wait a second. So just think, Yeshua's
Son of Yosef.
name was literally Yeshua ben Yosef, as in
The son of.
Mashiach ben Yosef, because Mashiach just means the anointed one. So he was the anointed one, the son of Yosef,
Yeah.
because
I
Mashiach.
was trying to get my head connected around with that son.
Because remember, they didn't have last names. How did you tell somebody? That's why it says in the Brit Hadashah, James, the son of Zebedee, because there were multiple Jameses. How do you know which one you're talking about? It's you talked about their lineage.
Name
Yeshua, Yeshua, yeah. Barabbas' name was Yeshua. So
And that's something,
Yeah.
the same name, you know, it's Yeshua, God.
so when you look at this picture, you've got this picture of Yeshua being the Mashiach, but he is the Mashiach ben Yosef and he is the Mashiach ben David.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Mm.
now, and
So if somebody would have asked him or asked us, what is your name? What would he say?
Yeshua,
Yes.
Joseph.
he would say, Yeshua
Not
ben
Yeshua
Yosef.
Ben David.
No,
Yeah, right.
Right.
yeah,
He would just.
because that would have been a title for
Right.
him being the son of
Right.
David.
Right.
Someone new or something
Right.
said Ben.
Yeah, because you really, when you're talking about somebody that you're saying, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Son of
Mhm.
Joseph, yeah.
yeah. I mean, this just like, I think back, and this is,
Wow.
it has nothing to do with that, but we've got last names. But when I was in school, for some reason, Lisa was a very popular name. And so I remember sitting in 5th grade and my last name was Blackwell. So I was Lisa Black. We shortened it to Black because I was Lisa Black, and then we had Lisa McIntosh. And so she became Lisa Mack. So we had Lisa Black, Lisa Mack, Lisa Smith, Lisa,
Remember
who else? God. Yeah, we were all in the same class, and it was really Lisa Grant. So I was like, there were 5 of us in the same class, and it was really confusing. So that's why so I was like, oh my gosh. So yeah, and they set us in alphabetical order, which is I hated. But anyway, okay, never mind. But think about this too. Yosef, when he first ended up in Potiphar's house, why didn't Yosef send a message back to Yaakov, his father, letting him know that he was not dead?
His father never came to look for him.
Yeah, they didn't come, but he knew. But why did he not send a message back? He was the beloved son of his father. Why didn't he, send that message back?
That is a very good question.
Because he could have done that. He wasn't, he was a servant.
He was in charge of Potiphar's house.
He had the freedom to
tell him himself, though.
Well, there were whole years and years went by. Why did
17 years, right?
It was
No, he was 17.
He was 17 years with his father at the beginning and 17 years with his father at the end.
I think.
But in
he realized
between-
there
I can't
was gonna
remember.
be a famine in the land, and that he
He didn't know
was
about
gonna
that
be
yet.
there.
Yeah.
Well, I think God put it on his heart to not take the matter into his own hands.
Yeah.
just to leave it be.
Okay. And Kelly said maybe he was scared of his brothers, or maybe Yah assured him that he's on the path to fulfill his dreams. I think it comes back to remember where this happened at Noton, and there were 2 revelations. And I think it was the revelation to Yosef saying that you're going to suffer for them. And that he is letting Yah's plan unfold is the reason he did not send back word or whatever. I think he was just letting Yah's plan unfold, and I'm going to take whatever comes, and then Yah's going to bring it back around for my good. Because remember, which not in this parsha, I don't want to go, but in the, later parsha, when he does reveal himself to his brothers, remember what he tells his brothers? What you planned for evil, it was all for good. You thought, okay, well, let's just think about that. Okay.
It was a twofold. You remember first he saw him and his family.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was him in the wheat fields and everything.
Yeah.
So he knew something was going to happen because he knew something God had planned.
The sheaves, yeah.
There in that time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go a little bit farther. In chapter 39,
That makes total sense.
we see that when, Yosef ends up in Potiphar's house and he gets in the situation, and that Yosef suffers a false accusation at the hand of Potiphar's wife. He didn't do anything to her, but that too is a mark of the execution stake, just like Yeshua faced false accusation and ends up in a prison. Genesis 39 verse 20. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison in the place where the king's prisoners were kept, and there in prison, but Yah was with Yosef, showing him grace and giving him favor in the sight of the prison warden, and the prison warden made Yosef supervisor of all the prisoners in the prison, so that whatever they did, he was in charge of it. So think about, out of all the places where Potiphar could have put Yosef, he placed him in prison where those who had failed in the service of the king would be put. And as bad as that situation was of being in prison, we find the statement that says, but Yah was with Yosef. And, this made me think about in Matthew chapter 10, verse 24, it says, a Talmud is not greater than his rabbi, and a slave is not greater than his master. It is enough for a Talmud that he become like his rabbi, and a slave like his master. Now, if people have been called the head of the house of Beelzebub, how much more would they malign the members of his household? So we are to be like the master. We are to be lower than him, but so we're going to be a servant. And in 1 Peter 2:19, it says, for it is a grace when someone, because he is mindful to God, bears up under the pain of undeserved punishment. Well, he was falsely accused. For what credit is there in bearing up under a beating you deserve for doing something wrong? But if you bear up under the punishment, even though you have done what is right, God looks upon you with favor. Indeed, it is this that you were called to do, because the Messiah too suffered on your behalf, leaving an example so that you should follow in his footsteps. He committed no sin, nor was there any deceit found on his lips. When he was insulted, he did not retaliate with insults. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but he handed them over to him who judges him justly. So, just like Yosef.
Don't sound like a good life.
It doesn't sound like a good life. But in the end, it's worth it. But he's called us to be that servant there. And, Yosef didn't raise his voice in innocence when she was, saying he did all this. Instead, he chose to commit himself to Yah. He said, okay, Yah knows I didn't do this. It's not my will. I'm not going to do revenge here, but the vengeance is yours. And in the end, it's Yah's judgment that would matter more than anybody else's judgment. And that Yah, nothing can be taken from us that Yah doesn't permit or allow. And if we remain faithful to trust in him, he is going to judge us righteously. And one day it will be returned even much more. So we may think, because of actions of Hasatan or people working, evil around us, that things are taken from us, and we may not get vengeance there. But come time for the resurrection, we will get our vengeance. Yah will vindicate us.
When you said that, I thought of Job.
Mm-hmm.
How it was with him. He suffered terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, lost
Everything. Yeah.
His wife, who was a pain.
Yep. Job.
Because of what she said all the time, But, he never turned away from God. His friends,
Right.
even cursing,
Right.
Curse God, and he would,
And so,
as much as he suffered in his body too, my gosh.
Yep. And like Angeline said, there's a door. He's the door there. That redemptive arc. He's going to come back around. And, Yoseph was imprisoned, but he found Yah's favor while there. And he was raised up to a position of authority over all the other prisoners. And, we see Joseph's encounter with the baker and the cupbearer. And
Now he tries to intervene there because he asked the cupbearer to, when you go back before Pharaoh, please tell him about me and tell him about how I interpreted your dream.
Yes, and he did, and nothing came of it. He still stayed there. Yeah. And
how did he not get overbearing with aggravation and frustration and grief and turmoil? And how did he put all those things under him and rise above all of that?
Yeah, and that was something that the girls group was talking about yesterday, or Thursday, was that, to do that, he did not complain through all of that.
Yeah.
That was something that he, we don't ever see Yosef really complaining about all the things that he went through.
Don't hear him complain about
Here's a question to you, Lisa. In that part, what was the most amazing thing to you about Joe after he was found and sold into slavery?
The most amazing thing, I guess, that he willingly allowed things to happen, and that he never, you don't really see him complaining through it, and that he,
What I saw was Joseph. He was just a shepherd. A shepherd. But when he got there, God made him many things.
Yeah.
He gave him gifts of all kinds. I mean, everything he touched and did prospered and excelled. Even when he was down there in prison, even the prisoners liked him because of the way he was straightening it up, cleaning it up, making it better for them, getting them better food. You know, that amazed me because he was just a pusher. And all he did was take care of the sheep.
Right. Yeah.
And when he got there, God advanced him, even though he was a prisoner, even though he was going to be tempted beyond his control with with Potiphar's wife.
Right.
But he prospered in him in everything he done, and he gave him the gifts of doing all this to make everything grow. Even like with the
he
worked for the king, the Pharaoh. He knew how to do things. He knew how to grow the wheat, put the wheat in the grain bins, how to preserve it, how to deal it out. I mean,
he was a picture of Yeshua, but think about for us, like Angeline said, he's just like Yeshua, and he was silent. He did not complain. And Kelly said, he was remaining faithful there. That you think about through it all, and I think that's part of it. It's just not. It's not just about doing the commandments. It's about how you do the commandments.
Well, it's do not commit adultery. Yeshua says, if you've looked on her already.
Yeah, he put that fence around it. Yep.
You've already
committed adultery
in your heart.
Yes.
And this is what he came to show us, is how to follow Yahweh with our hearts and our minds And to be fully committed to
Right.
them.
And I think not only that, but we are to be the bride. You know, a lot of times, all you men want to look at the women and say, just be, submissive, but it's about we're all, whether you're male or female, are going to be the bride here. We are all to be submissive to him. And that is sometimes being, when you're done wrong, you don't go blabbing your mouth. You just shut it, let Yah handle it.
That ain't easy.
That's not easy. And that's part of that, yeah. Mhm.
I think Job had a lot of fear of Yah.
It's
Yeah.
And,
That's the beginning
in
of
that
wisdom.
verse 12 and 13, he said, how can I be this great witness and sin against Elohim?
Yes. It had more of a fear of Yah than a fear of man.
Yeah.
Because if you really think about
Right.
if we share and we blurt out and we tell somebody, when they hurt us, how, bad something is, are we, more fearful or letting words fly, or are we more fearful of Yah? I mean, that's like, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm not me, but I mean, I know some people that will just like let a whole bunch of words fly. I'm like, oh, but so
That's what Joseph said to Pharaoh's wife, he said, he said, not Pharaoh, but what's his name?
Potiphar's wife. Mhm.
Potiphar, he said, I've been given over all of Potiphar's things, except
Control.
you.
Yeah.
And I will not go against my God
Yeah.
in that,
Yeah.
you know.
So he feared Yah more than.
Feared God.
Okay, I'm going to get right here to the end. Last picture, another picture of Yeshua here. Think about Yoseph was in prison, and we see these two others, the cupbearer and the baker there. There were two criminals, just like Yeshua was hung with two criminals, here. And, Yosef, of course, asked to be remembered when the cupbearer is released. And, after the cupbearer was restored, of course, he forgot about Yosef. But that is a lesson for us. Make sure that whatever words we speak, if we say we're going to do something, that we do it. That, don't neglect what we promise to do. And in that, we also have the lesson of Yosef there, that there was a time of waiting, a long time of waiting, that he was waiting to be remembered. So,
Anticipation of being released had to be tremendous.
tremendous. Yeah. Yep.
At the time that he thought that I don't want to say that he had orchestrated his release.
Yeah. To think he was going to happen
Yeah.
then. And then it's like, nope, another 2 more years. There you go. Angelina said, something that hit me this week: the moment you realize someone has a different spirit, there's truly nothing we can say that will change anything. We can only say, say purple, and they'll hear, when you say, I was like, what is it? What? When we say purple, they'll hear black. The more we try to speak, the more it will be twisted against us. And the best thing we can do is to be silent and let Yah fight for us.
And that's hard for you to do, especially, if you think you're right.
If you think you're right, it's hard.
Really hard to, do. But listen, unless y'all can move upon their heart, unless they can just not see past their own nose, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
You're making things worse.
Yeah, you
You're not
are making things
provoking
worse.
them to the truth, you provoke them to be mad and angry and
Right.
say stuff.
Right. So that's what I wanted to share today, more or less. I mean, I didn't go into a lot of the stuff I went in before. Any questions, things y'all want to talk about before we end here? Y'all okay? No? Y'all okay?
Yeah, just learn to keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut.
Put a plug in.
Put a plug in it. So, yeah. And to think, I mean, I don't know, to me, the thinking about is that, especially when you realize that what comes around, you don't want to say not comes around, goes around, but what you reap, you're going to sow. Even sometimes we think about something that may not be a big deal, ends up coming back, boomeranging to us. And that, it's even more so that we need to think about how much more we need to be silent and watch what we say, and not only watch what we say, but, just like, is not being like the whole thing that bred the point of the animosity between the brothers, with all the negative feelings, the negative talk, the negative, because he said something that was taken out of context, but
They did, the thing about murder is not something you automatically think about. Boom.
Mhm.
Murder is something you build up to.
Right.
You have thought about much stuff before you've thought about bitterness, resentment, hatred.
To even get to that
all of
point,
these
yeah.
Before you get to that point where you would finally say.
Yeah, even to snap,
That's killing you.
to say somebody snapped,
Yeah.
to even get to that, you have to have that bitterness and stuff
Right.
build up to there.
Built
Yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah.
And this teaching, like today, I know we had it last year, but you brought a lot more forth, and truth and
Mhm.
everything. And, so that was good, because every year we learn something.
Something different, something new. Yep. And it hits you in such a different way.
We just keep going around, because we're studying it every year. But every year we find there's something a little bit more.
Mhm. Yeah. It's a cycle.
So good.
Yeah.
This world teaches you that everything is linear,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but in y'all's world, everything is circular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes back around.
Again,
The
to
seasons.
discuss it again and
Yes.
learn more and little tidbits again, that's opening up our eyes more and more and our
Yeah.
heart more and more to God.
Are we willing to submit ourselves to be that suffering for
Right.
his plan?
Yeah.
Because it's not about us. It's got to be about him.
It's hard for a lot of people, not to just speak their mind regardless of what consequences.
That's something I
Especially
never
you.
really learned.
No, I'm just teasing.
Angelina said, nice hat.
That's it.
Yeah, you can see he confiscates my hats. He takes them.
Amen.
Okay.
Is everybody ready to, we'll have the blessing over the congregation, everybody?
Mhm.
If you're ready, you got it, baby. Yebereka ka Yahava Virish Meireha Yahir Yahava Panava Eleka Venuheka Yesayahava Penavileka Vayeshem Leka Shalom. May Yah bless you and keep you. May Yah make his face to shine on you and show you his favor. May Yahweh lift up his face towards you and give you peace. Mashiach HaMashiach Sar Shalom. Go in peace. Amen.
Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. I tell you, this lesson reminds me of many things, and one of them is having patience to wait on Yah, to see what his will is, to be careful what we say, because it can cause a lot of consequences. But just the same as to love Yah, love it. It's always the same mess, because he says to love the Lord with all our hearts, all our souls, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. So it's about that. Let that lead us, and then Yah will, he'll speak to our hearts and speak to, the plan. He's got a plan for all of us. A lot of times we mess his plan up, and he has to kind of have an altered plan sometime, but it's always
He
something
maneuvers it the way he wants
for
it to go.
for the good of us.
Yes.
And the good of other people. So bless you. Yah loves you, and hope to see you next week.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Bye. You have a great week.